Hello everyone, and welcome to this month's MasterMine End Users webinar. We'll be discussing reporting across other data sources, basically bridging the gaps. And of course your presenter today will be Rob Macalack. So without further ado, Rob, I know you have a lot to do. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Carnegie, and welcome everybody. Thanks for taking the time out to visit with us again once this month. So today's session, of course, will be recorded, and you can share it. Now, I want to point out right up from the start that initially I'm going to talk about generally what you can do with MasterMine, and then we're going to actually get into how you do these things. So this session will get fairly technical after the first bit here. So I want to just let you know, sort of thinking about that, plus the fact that it's recorded means you can share this with others within the organization who may need to, who want to sort of take the tech tips out of this, but don't take that as a reason not to stick around, at least initially, to talk about the general stuff. What we really want to aim toward here is giving you just the feeling that yes, this thing can be accomplished, whatever you have in mind in terms of having GoldMine talk with other databases or other data sources, or really just improving your ways of passing information around, some of which or all of which is in GoldMine, and communicating that both with people who are not on GoldMine as well as let's say others who are. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. We're going to be, and this is kind of a full one, as you can tell, but really I'm talking about these things in, as I said, broad ways initially, and then we'll get down into the wiring. So first off, reporting across GoldMine and other databases. It is certainly possible, more than possible, we do this all the time, to take MasterMine reports, which are of course built using a query that talks directly to your GoldMine database, and broaden that query to talk to have it link to other databases that are either on your same SQL server or even accessible from your SQL server. It is, people often don't know this, but it is, there's almost no database out there, even if it's a web-based a database, that can't be bridged from SQL and brought into a query and therefore presented to you in a nice MasterMine pivot table type presentation inside of Excel. So we will get into the technical stuff about how to do that here in a bit. In addition to that, we will also be talking about passing data around via Excel, and of course using MasterMine as the means for doing that. Just about every organization that I run into, I actually received an email in the last day or so saying that 1 out of 7 human beings uses Microsoft Office. This is Microsoft, of course, wanting to sell their product. But their point is Excel is sort of the universal application that's there for people to pass lists and data and so on back and forth amongst each other. And so every organization that we see, that whether they're using GoldMine or not, usually has some procedure internally for passing information around that's really just a matter of keeping spreadsheets and handing them around to each other. Sometimes it's lists, names and addresses and so on. It's sales forecasts. Was recently talking with a company that they actually keep in GoldMine all of their sales activity, but except the actual sales, the forecast sales and the completed sales, they do that as a separate Excel spreadsheet, which multiple people are responsible for keeping up to date, and it's really kind of in my opinion, not only inefficient because they are entering things, partially in GoldMine and then partially also in this spreadsheet, but it's not only inefficient, it's also rife with the dangers of inaccurate information, and if you pass wrong information in this way around, you compound problems. And the solution to that, of course, is have that information stored either in GoldMine someplace or even in another database that GoldMine can, and use that as the basis for reporting, for creating an actual printed forecast report in MasterMine or in Excel. So in other words, when you need that, when someone needs to look at the forecast, they don't use a pass-around Excel workbook. They instead use a MasterMine report, which just generates for them at the moment they need it out of the data, and is accurate because all the data is kept in one place instead of a whole bunch of different copies floating around, and the data is entered according to the rules of the database itself. So it'll tend to be consistent and accurate. So all of that by way of saying this whole phenomenon of passing information around in Excel is something that can be made considerably more efficient, more accurate, more really more appropriate to a business environment. And we really need to think about three aspects of that: passing information from GoldMine to people who don't have GoldMine, and vice versa, of course, passing it from others into GoldMine. And when I say these others, they may be people who are in your company who don't have GoldMine. They may be people outside the company who don't have GoldMine, but for whom you have to regularly pass information back and forth, let's say between a distributor and a bunch of the manufacturers whose products they represent, or between a manufacturer and a bunch of distributors. And we see this issue all the time because there's a lot of GoldMine using companies that are one or the other, a manufacturer or a distributor, and they have to pass information back and forth about, here are the leads that we generated for you to follow up on. Here are the ones that we've received, that we've our prospects, and sort of a call, not a call report, but a sort of prospect report that sales managers demand. This kind of information can go one way, or it can be a round trip. And I'm going to suggest here that actually a round trip is a good way to go, where you actually, let's say, out of your GoldMine, generate a list of leads, prospects that you want your distributor to follow up on. Use MasterMine to do that. Make it include the account number in GoldMine, so that when you send it out to the distributor to follow up on, and the distributors do their follow-ups, and then put the results of that back in, right into that Excel document, send it back to you, that information can go right back into your GoldMine, updating things and doing things automatically, instead of the manual way that you're probably handling it currently, which is, as I said before, rife with the danger of human error, easy to misplace things, and well, so on. Okay, so we're going to talk about all three of those ways of passing around information between GoldMine and others through Excel. And I'm not going to get actually technically much into the GM Plus View thing, but I did want to point this out. GoldMine GM Plus View is your tab in GoldMine that allows you, with some setup, to actually view outside data. In other words, data that is kept in some external database, could be on the web, could be in your accounting system, could be in your ERP system, and actually have that information queried automatically and presented within a window in GoldMine based on the record that you're looking at, the account record that you're looking at in GoldMine. So that basically you could, in GoldMine, let's say, go from record to record to record in your GoldMine records, and have that GM Plus view each time be updating with current, let's say, outstanding orders from your accounting system, or whatever is appropriate in terms of a quick lookup. That's one of the major ideas behind the GM Plus view. A lot of people wind up only using that for things like MapQuest and so on, so you can quickly look up where you're going to go. But that GM Plus view is potentially really valuable too. Okay, that's actually all I'm going to say about that today. I'm not going to go into too much into the details about how to manage that. If you do have questions about that, or want us to look into actually setting up some GM Plus views for you, of course, let us know. After I do a set of this, I'm actually going to do 2 rounds through this agenda, because as you can see, I'm talking through just sort of in a soft way what this is before we go to the technical things. I will open up for questions. In fact, I want to see, Carnegie, if anybody does have any questions just about what I've said so far, go ahead and put those into the question window right now, especially if you don't plan to hang around here for the technical go through here. While you're doing that, I will mention that at the end of the session here, as usual, we will have a giveaway of a free 1.5 hour session of, typically that's me with somebody on your end talking about either the topic of this, something related to the topic of this webinar, or really anything related to MasterMine. So just by sticking around till the end of this webinar, you stand a good chance of winning a half-hour free session. Worth, let's say at our top price is about $90. So well worth hanging out for. So Carnegie, just in case, are there any questions that have come up?
Not at this time.
Okay, sounds good. Then let's go right back through here. So I'm gonna go through the agenda here piece by piece in a more technical fashion. So let's switch over into our GoldMine. Okay, so now in this case you're not actually going to see our GoldMine. I'm starting out a little unusually here with this topic of reporting across GoldMine and other databases, and I'm starting out inside a MasterMine report. Because this is really sort of the starting point. What I've done is generate a main contacts report. This is, just to sort of show you with the steps that I did to do this. This is fairly obvious stuff. Create a MasterMine report. I still have, by the way, my create button on my GoldMine taskbar. You, of course, could get to the create dialog through your launch MasterMine and then hit the create button. And I'll point out while this is coming up, I guess after it's come up, I'll point out that I actually have added a user-defined field here called NW account. Underneath this field, it's actually called, well, here it's called uTestDal, but in the example I'm going to use, it's called UNW account. That's for Northwind accounting. And so what this is the connection that I'm going to make in this case presumes that you've actually got in GoldMine a field which is the account number for the same client in the accounting system. This can be done various different ways. You could have in the accounting system, you could have the GoldMine account number, or you could do it vice versa. You could also make use, you don't need necessarily to use user-defined fields for this. You could use, let's say, a key 5 field in GoldMine. You could define this one as the account number, just label it that way, and then as long as the field is long enough and handles the right type of characters, that can be your accounting system account number. And if I've seen actually systems where they have that, but then they aren't actually taking the next step and reaching out and doing reporting across the two of them. Kind of a shame because it's a pretty nice and easy way to work with this. Okay, so let's presume here that I have created a main contacts report using my create dialog, and when I did that, I also included the user-defined field, which is the NW account, and here it is right there toward the end. By the way, if you can't find it easily, of course, you can always sort them alphabetically and check it on to include it. So in this case, I pretty much did that. I hit the finish button and got my report. Okay, so let's assume that part of it, and I'm going to actually just roll this up. So I have 376 records in my GoldMine database, and the really that's all we need to know at this point. So in this first part is where we're talking about linking, or basically creating MasterMine reports that also link to outside databases. You start by creating the report, as I've done here. Then you would go into the actual query of the report. Now, how do you modify a MasterMine query? You essentially have to have a field, a cell selected on the pivot table. Go to the Tools ribbon, or well, this is really called a ribbon in Excel, and go to the Edit Query button, and that pops up this query window that shows you the actual query that pulls the data. Here's where we're going to get pretty technical on this, and it's kind of going to remain that way for the rest of this presentation. Okay, now over on the right here, I've kind of laid out the schema of the Northwind accounting database. The schema of your database is either something that you find out through the technical documentation for your accounting system, or you can typically you can sort of intuit it from what you find in the actual database. I don't actually have in my SQL server here a database called Northwind, but let's just go with this. and assume that there is a SQL database called Northwind that has these tables in it, 3 tables: orders, order items, and contacts, and that within each of those tables are these fields, about the ones that you would probably typically expect to find there, in addition to, probably dozens of others. The actual rewriting of the query can be done like this. First, what I'll do is what I'm doing is adding a dash before there. What that does is it tells SQL, ignore this line. So everything between that dash and the carriage return is going to be ignored, and we're going to substitute a different from clause here. Now, how is this from clause going to look? Essentially, what we need to do is, now again, we're assuming that this database is on the same server, and the database's name is Northwind. In the case of the server that we're looking at, the GoldMine database is actually named MMDemo here. In many of your cases, by default, it's probably called GoldMine. So when you open this up in your own system, you're going to see GoldMine ... in the name of your tables. So the way this is going to work is we'll call this Northwind ... So Northwind indicates the name of the database. Now, ... is sort of a substitute for the generic DBO, database owner, in SQL. In some cases, you may be required explicitly to put the DBO in here. In some cases, just a ... works fine. In this case, I'm going to go with this, and I'm going to start my from clause here with the most granular of the tables that are involved here. Now, you see that these tables do link to each other. The invoice number, each item in the order items table, of course, has its own item number. It might be a line item number or something like that. And those are groupable up into an invoice number. Each entity within the order items order items is the item number, but each entity at the orders level is the invoice number. And so these logically link from invoice number to invoice number that way, and then from invoice number those roll up to account number, and in that data, in the Northwind database, there's a contacts table that has account number as a field. Now, by the way, this is a little bit fanciful. This isn't the actual Northwind product. I'm just using this as an example, sort of a made-up example. But that's how these things are going to link. That this Northwind account number is contained in our GoldMine database here, as I showed you a little while ago. It's actually right up there. So that kind of completes the connection. Now it's just a matter of joining up these tables and having them all talk to each other. So I'll start this out manually, and then I'm actually going to plug in a finished one, so you don't have to watch me type all this in. So we're going to do Northwind database. Order items is the table. OI is an alias for that table. From now on, we'll be able to refer to this table by that alias, and we're going to inner join that table to do this the shorter way here. The orders table, call this Northwind orders, on no.nw account no equals OI nw account no. And then we're going to inner join from there. We're going to inner join the contacts table, the GoldMine contact one table, and so on. And let me just plug in what that will actually look like here. I'm going to get it from another screen, I hope, and paste it right there in place of this. Okay, so that would be the final query that would bring all of this in. If you have any trouble with this, you can typically refer back to us, and we can help you. So once you've joined that in, all you've got really left to do is include whatever fields you need from the target tables. If the join is logical, then the result should be that you wind up with one row in your query for every item that's been ordered out there in the world. Now you can also do this at one for every order or every invoice, especially if all you're doing is trying to bring in, let's say, the total amounts of the invoices into GoldMine. By the way, well, I'll finish talking about putting these fields in, and then I do want to talk about, well, why do we want to pull certain fields in, and what are we going to do with them once we've got them over there in the report? Because ultimately, one of the possibilities, of course, is to actually pass this information back into GoldMine and keep it current over time, so that you've got good information for your sales reps. Okay, but first let's just finish up on the technical part of it. Adding new fields. Fields have to be separated by commas in here. So after this, we're going to pull in, let's say, from the order items database, some of these other fields. So we'll get, we probably don't need the invoice number, but we do want probably the item number. And product. I'm not going to do all these, of course, just to give you a sense of what this is going to be. So these will all be separated by commas, except the very last one does not have a comma before the from clause. So SQL knows that the end of the selection of fields comes as soon as it reaches a whole item that doesn't have a comma at the end of it. But we can do, so those would be our fields from the target databases. Likewise, we can, just by changing the, in this case I had the orders level information, is the alias is just O, so it would be O dot invoice date and so on. So what is this going to allow us to do? It's basically going to allow us to pull information, again, just simply by opening the MasterMine report and refreshing it. It'll automatically pull today's information into the report that you're using, and that's not just today, of course, but 2 weeks from now and a month from now, and whenever you look at this report, it will always be current. And from there, because you've got MMUpdater, you would be able to actually push this information into useful fields in GoldMine. So both for the reporting aspect as well as being it for actually managing the GoldMine data. And so let's suppose we get things like the invoice date. Well, it might very well be useful to have a field up at the top of your GoldMine that shows what's the date they last bought something from you. That's how that field could get updated using Updater. This could include, in this case, this is set up to show both the date of the last time they bought from you as well as the amount of what they bought from you the last time. And I think you can pretty easily connect the dots between where we are right now and using Updater to push that information into GoldMine. So that would be invoice date. We have another customer that wants to do this with warranty information that they've got in their accounting system. Wouldn't it be useful for your sales reps to know when things that the customer bought years ago are going off of warranty? Great time to call them up and sell them a new machine, or sell them a new, whatever the new paid extended warranty program might be. If that information is not just in the accounting system but actually in GoldMine, that's really useful for the sales process. Not to mention, for that matter, for the office personnel to just maintain that and have the information in front of them when they're talking to customers. Okay, so that is, technically speaking, that's kind of the bones of going into the back end of a MasterMine report, modifying the query so that it will produce new information. Once that's done, you would hit, just so I don't confuse anybody here, let me do the final let's say warranty. And do that without a final comma. So this actually would be a syntactically correct query. So if you go down here and hit test, and this database exists, which in my case it doesn't on my SQL Server, but if it does, hit test, that will let you know whether the query actually worked. If it did, you can hit save, then save your MasterMine workbook. Never forget to do that. And having done all of that, you now have all the parts that you need. These new fields that we added in here will show up in the list. You can drag them in, organize the report how you need it, and you're ready to go. So you essentially would have all the parts that you need for your reporting as well as for your ongoing updating out to GoldMine. Okay, so that is section 1, reporting across GoldMine and other databases. If you need help with things like making that connection to a database, either that's on your SQL Server or that you can connect to through your SQL Server, in other words, a tunnel, so to speak, can be created from your SQL Server to any other database that's out there. I've seen it done, gosh, to other SQL databases, to non-SQL databases, to Access databases, to actually to Excel spreadsheets. You can actually use a SQL Server can read data from an Excel spreadsheet and use it as a table and link it into reports and so on. It's really pretty incredible what can be done these days. Okay, so with that, I'm going to close this one and then move on to the question of passing data around via Excel. So we'll go a little bit less technical here for the moment and then come back again. So the passing things out from GoldMine to other places, hopefully you know that's something that should be pretty simple for you. Use your, let's use your pivot table as a means of selecting a subset of data that you want to pass to somebody else. Let me clone this page just so I want to clone it so I can get rid of this other stuff over here. And just talk about this as a mechanism for exporting. You know, if your aim is that you want to create a list for somebody outside of GoldMine of, let's say, names and email addresses of everybody who bought something from you last year but has not bought something from you this year, it's pretty straightforward to create a MasterMine report that does that, especially if you've got last year's sales and year-to-date sales populated inside of GoldMine. You essentially could do a MasterMine report that includes those fields and then use the selections in there to isolate, well, the ones that are 0 for this year but more than 0 for last year. I'll leave that to your imagination. That's pretty straightforward, easy stuff. And then essentially get down to where you have your list by doing a drill down. And let's suppose that these 42 were the ones that we're after. So let's say this is the actual list that you want to pass to somebody who doesn't have MasterMine. Now, of course, if you just simply save this workbook, MasterMine's going to fold this up and save it, and you're not really going to be able to pass the actual workbook to somebody else. But if you want to do a snapshot of this and send this information to somebody, send this out basically to an archive workbook that is not essentially not a MasterMine workbook, but just a snapshot of this, you could do that. MasterMine does allow you, and again, this is the snapshot button on the MasterMine toolbar up here. MasterMine does allow you to automatically include a timestamp on it to save the new report as either 2003 compatible or higher. So in this case, this says 2010 because I actually have Excel 2010 that we're running in. If you're on 2013, it would show 2013 in here and so on. But essentially, you can save it in either of those formats, hit OK, creating this new list. It actually asks you what name do you want to save this as and where you're going to save it to. I'll go ahead and let it do that just by do the default thing. And then it will actually switch over to, it asks me, do I want to actually work with this work with the archive itself. So here you can see I'm in the archive outside of MasterMine. And this is just an Excel spreadsheet, which I can now go and attach to an email to somebody or upload to an online service or whatever it is that I'm going to do with this. By the way, it is useful if you're going to be sending this out and you want the information to make a round trip. If you want to send this to your distributor and have them fill in over here something that says, current status, give them an extra column to fill in and say, please give me information all the way down here, and then receive this back from them, which I'll get to here in a moment, and you get the information and put it back into a current status field inside of GoldMine. This would be the way to do it. Here's the report. Here, I'll actually save it. and then let's suppose you had sent this out to your distributor. The distributor came here and filled this in and said, you know, still interested, went out of business, whatever it is, you know, going down their list of information, they can just sort of fill this in. And then let's say they save this. I'll go ahead and save this, and I'll close it. And so now you receive it back, you the user. How are you going to get that information back into GoldMine? This is where, so now I'm down on the sort of round trip level of this. So I'm going to kind of take that from scratch, and it's important to, I want you to understand how the parts fit together. So that information comes back. Now if you just simply go and open that up, and let me go to my documents here where I've got that file. If you just simply go into Excel and open that up, it's going to look like this. And hopefully it opens up a little more quickly than that. Do my double click not work? Okay, well I just double clicked on it again, so it'll open up in Excel here. Somehow it thinks it's still open. Let's, well, I'll just open that read-only for now, and we'll close it, close those other things. All right, so, oh, I see why, because it actually did open twice. So here's the first one that I opened. Okay, so now here's what you got back from the dealer or from the distributor. You've got account numbers in here, you've got a current status that they've filled in, but you don't have any MasterMine functionality here. How are you going to make that final leap from just a spreadsheet into GoldMine? Well, what you want to do is actually a little trick, which is open an existing MasterMine report, and it really doesn't matter which MasterMine report you open. Let's see if we can get our launch going here. And I'll just open up, in this case I'll open up my most recently used one because I'm going to want that again, but really any working MasterMine report will work for this. And you get it open in Excel. Then you use a button that I have not referred to very much inside MasterMine reports before, but this Open Report button here. So what Open Report will let you do is either open up another MasterMine report, which, as I'm sure you know, you can't normally open MasterMine reports just in Excel because they're sort of locked up and closed. In this case, I'm going to use it to open up what in effect is a non-MasterMine report, but which does contain account numbers and such. And we're going to go to, what's the name of that? Here, this was the name of it, Main Contacts Sheet 16. So when I double click, it opens up here inside the same instance of Excel, and because it's the same instance of Excel, I still have the MasterMine tools in here. That means I can do things like run Updater from here. Now, one other important part about this is MasterMine, or the Excel here, doesn't yet know that what we've got here is a table. It looks a lot like a table, but you can see it's not formatted. It doesn't have the blue and white lines here that you typically have in a table inside of Excel. But never fear, there is a button that you can hit over here called Insert, and as long as Excel will sort of assume that this information that's organized in the way that you're seeing it probably is a table because it just looks like one. It's got a header at the top of each row, although it doesn't know for sure that that's a header, and then it's got data filled in with each one of those. But it just sort of assumes it, and it assumes that even though I only had one cell selected in here, it assumes that it's going to be consistently table information from cell A1 down to N43. A1 is up here, N43 is this column at the bottom row of the thing, which is row 43. I can actually drag it down and show it. So you can see it has actually, by default, highlighted exactly the area of the table here. I'm leaving my table has headers checked on, which refers to these headers in row 1 here. Say OK, and now we've got a table. Now, the beauty of having a table is that MasterMine's drill down functionality is now available to you. Again, because we started out inside MasterMine with the MasterMine report, and we opened this up through the open report dialog here. So now you have the MasterMine drill down menu available to you, which means you have Updater available to you, and you could take, for example, these current statuses, and it will know to go to that account number. Whoops, normally it should be right there. Oh, sorry, there is one more step, which is to move this sheet back into a working MasterMine report, which in this case we've got another one open already because that's the one that we started with. So we actually need to right-click on Sheet, say Move. We're actually going to, or we'll copy it. We'll copy it into the main contacts report. So essentially, I've just taken that sheet, joined it with the other report that I had open, and now we can run Updater against this, and we can tell it, let's go ahead and update, let's say the comments field. The comments, which is going to be in contact 2, I think. Or really, whatever user-defined field you, user-defined, or in this case, a built-in field that you normally use to keep that kind of information, and then take it off of test run. We'll update those 2 records. And now if we go to the global corporation record here, Aaron Jameson, what we'll see is, if we look on the summary tab here, comments went out of business. Or if you wanted that, I would actually typically not have that hidden off on a field someplace, on a tab someplace. You could actually have that comments field up on the main part of your screen. And so that's your distributor comments. That's more information about that record that you want to have at the fingertips of a sales rep. Okay, so that all is the slightly technical way of getting information round trip out to other users back into GoldMine. By the way, we also the updater part of it was another major part on our agenda. The last part that I've got on the agenda for today is to talk about what do you do when somebody just sends you information in GoldMine, or let's say you extract information from non-GoldMine source like your accounting system, or it comes from your distributor, non-GoldMine again, just as a regular spreadsheet, or you get a let's say a list from a trade show of attendees. How do you want to match that up with what's in GoldMine so that you can do all the same stuff? What's missing, of course, in that list is the account numbers. So how do you get GoldMine account numbers for a list that doesn't have them? I'm going to actually, let's do this. Do I have enough information to here? I do. I'm going to take this as an example. And so let's say you had gone through all the same processes. You opened up a MasterMine report, you imported or you opened up this document within it, you copied the sheet over into GoldMine, made it into a table, as I've done here, but let's say it didn't have the account numbers in it, right? Or you sent out the list and you failed to include the account numbers, or they never really did have the account numbers. But what they do have is some kind of information that we can match up with GoldMine. Could be the company name, could be some combination of the company name and the zip code, which is actually what I'm going to use to do this lookup. Or it might be the phone number. Something, though, has to be able to do an exact one-to-one match between this list and what you see and what's actually in GoldMine. So in this case, I'm going to actually add in account number as a field. And I'm going to walk us through the VLOOKUP process, in other words, using a function called VLOOKUP in Excel to have this sheet actually do a lookup to another sheet and find an account number. Now, remember, we started out here with a GoldMine list. This was a comprehensive list of everybody that we have in GoldMine. And so you'll want to start with a main contacts kind of report that has all of them. Or has all the things that you can potentially match up with. And I'm actually going to create a lookup sheet by double-clicking on on the grand total, which gives me every account in my database. And one thing I could do if I knew that the names coming in would all match up exactly with my company names, that would be easy enough that would give me what I needed. I could essentially do a matchup through VLOOKUP with company name. Let's just do that for simplicity's sake. Let's go over to our sheet where, again, we have no account number yet and actually do the VLOOKUP function. And by the way, this doesn't have to be all the way on the right-hand side. I'm actually going to move it over into the middle of the screen just so you can see it better. So this is going to be the account number. What we want to do is get the account number, is look up the account number by pulling the company field from here, having it look over into the drill down page that I just created. I named it sheet 3. I'm going to name it something better like GM list, just so I know that this is where I've got my full GoldMine list. Now I've alphabetized these by company, and that's actually the first step you need to do before you do a VLOOKUP. You have to have the field that you're looking up sorted. By the way, I will get into, we'll mention at the end here, because you may be thinking, well, what's the likelihood that we're going to have an exact match on all company names? Probably not all that great, but you would have an exact match with phone numbers, or you might have it if you took, for example, the company name and appended the zip code, or took the first 10 characters of the company name and appended the zip code into a single field, and did your lookup that way. I'll get to that here in a moment, but let's just start with what we've got. Okay, so we're going to be essentially telling Excel to look up in this section of this GM list, look up by company name, and they're alphabetical, and then pull the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th field from the right, or from the left. So the 11th field is what we want to return over into our sheet 16 here that we imported. Okay, so with that information, now I know enough to actually create my VLOOKUP over here. So the formula is going to be equals VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup, by the way. Vertical meaning the list that we're looking at is vertically shaped, vertically organized, and it's alphabetical. And the value we're going to look up is the actual company name for the same row that we're on. Now I'm putting this formula into this cell. We're going to actually have it copy down the whole page, so it'll automatically go and look. In fact, it'll do that automatically. So this formula is going to look for the company name for the row that I'm on. It's going to look in a certain table array. What's the table array? It is the GM list tab, these columns, B through M columns. So I went to the GM list tab while still creating the VLOOKUP function and was able to highlight those, and when I did that, you can see it automatically filled into the VLOOKUP function that's where we're going to be looking. Clicked right after that, so I can go to the next item that's going to get looked up. Remember, we said we're going to be looking in column index number 11. Remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whoops, 12. So it's going to be column 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, yes. So the 12th column is where we're going to pull our account number from, 12th column after the company, and we're going to, we're not actually doing a range lookup here. We have to have in other words, we have to have an exact match, not an approximate match. Approximate match, by the way, would give you the next one down if it's the nearest, which may help us actually for some of these where we've got inexact matches. What I would do first is get the exact matches, because there's some risk with inexact ones that you get the wrong thing. And then that's it. We've filled out the function, and the function is VLOOKUP. We're still actually updating the function on the other sheet, even though we're at the moment looking at our source table sheet. But when I hit the Enter key or the Return key, either one, either one, you can see that it has now filled in that function in the account no column here, and it has filled it in all the way down the page, and the results are all here. So we actually did get, now this was an easy kind of a match, because our target list we originally exported from our own database, and then we're coming back and matching up with the same database here. So that match really works quite well, even though we neglected to include the account number when we sent this up. And by the way, this is also true if you uploaded your list in the past to Constant Contact or to MailChimp or some online service that does marketing for you. When those things get results, and you can download those results in Excel spreadsheets that show, who clicked on the email that you sent out or who went to your website or whatever, when you get that information back, if you included the company name along with the email addresses when you uploaded them, you could actually come back and do a match like this and again import that information coming back from those marketing sources right into GoldMine. And you can use them with Updater, not just to update individual fields, update a field like the comments field as I did. You could use Updater to do something like, a little bit of field from this, but you could use Updater to do something like, I've got a not quite current version of GoldMine here, but one of the things you can do is use it to create new entries, new history entries from there. So you could actually have a history entry in GoldMine for every item for every time somebody clicked on your marketing pieces.
We have a question that popped up. Great one.
Okay. Go ahead.
On the GM list page, there might be multiple entries for one company. How does it know which of those companies to use?
Good question. Well, what it will do is it will take the first one that it finds that's an exact match. And if you need to differentiate them, so let's say you've got multiple entries, let me go back to the GM Plus list, multiple entries for Banana Republic, or maybe Amazon. I want to find one where there's a multiple entry, but it's, let's say they're in different, you might have Banana Republic, but they're in, but they're in different zip codes. So, and let's just fill some in. Just to kind of illustrate it. Now, if you don't have this information for them, that's a different story. But if you've got, let's say, these are in different zip codes, then that would be a logical reason why you would want to use not just company name, but company and zip code to do your lookup. And by the way you would do that, because I promised earlier that I would say how that might be done. You might insert a lookup or a match field in here that you create sort of artificially, where the match is going to be the a trim of the company name, and now what that does is strip off any extra trailing spaces that are on the company's name, and the zip code field. And wouldn't you know, I did something not right here. What was it? Oh, probably that this is in here numerically for some of them. Format this as a as text, maybe. Okay, so I'm not actually sure what I did wrong in my. Or is it just trim? Maybe that's what my issue. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. It should just say trim. So it's not L-trim, it's trim and the zip code field. Okay, there we go. So if there's a zip code that would be on there, it would be appended on there. And then essentially what you would be changing is you would now sort these alphabetically as your source. I'm on the lookup side. So this is what we would be using for doing our lookup, but you would do the same thing under GM plus or also on the GM list. Insert your field there, call it match or matchup or whatever you want to call it, and then your formula here again is going to be equals trim of the company, and that's an ampersand there, the zip code, and then that fills in all the way down. Make sure that it is alphabetized by that, and then now you can do a lookup where this is your leftmost column. By the way, the value that you're looking up has to be the leftmost column of the range of cells that gets looked up into. And it has to be the leftmost, and it has to be alphabetical. And if you do that, then your VLOOKUP will return nice, appropriate information into the account number field. Now, because I moved it, let's see, I think we're no longer the 12th, but probably the 13th field is where the account number is in these other ones. That's why my returning account number is not right over here. So sometimes you will have to fix those after the fact. Okay, we have covered our intended concepts here. I will take questions at the end, but we've got another 5 minutes or so, so I want to do our free, our giveaway here before we get off. Carnegie, keep your eye on there for questions. Go ahead and post your questions in the question dialog, and I will switch us back here to there. Just wanted to kind of put in a quick pitch for what we're doing here, or how, if you do not feel comfortable doing the sorts of data connections that I've been talking about today, do not worry. We can do these things for you. We are under our usual support pack work. You get, excuse me, this stuff can be done obviously by you, or it can be done by us, and we typically can do it very efficiently because we're very good at it, because we've done it a lot. If you, and the great thing about it is it's not like it has to be done over and over again. Once you set up a data connection like this in a report, all you're going to do from then on is you never have to create it again. You just open it and refresh it and do variations on it and use your usual MasterMine flexibility to do variations on the pivot table and graphics and all the possible ways that you might want to look at that joined information. Our support, I broke it down here for you a little bit different way than you might have seen before. If you buy larger support packs, you get, in other words, you get up to the 40 and 80 units in a support pack, your price per unit goes down, or per credit. So I actually put it out this way. I've actually failed to put in the full price, but an 80 unit support pack is $3,000, for example. What you get for that is not, hours. What you get is a job done. You get a job done for typically a pretty reasonable price that you can then build upon because of that flexibility of the pivot table that you create. So just bear that in mind. We can help you with this stuff. I think I won't belabor that too much more. Let's go to our drawing. So Carnegie, from our remaining viewers here, let's go ahead and do our drawing.
Our winner today is Gary Lacey.
Gary Lacey. Gary, congratulations.
Lacey.
A long time, he just said that, he's like a long time MasterMine user, who will probably be very happy to have some extra help that way. Gary, we can use this for whatever purposes you want to do, report writing, data updating, all the usual things that you do with your MasterMine. If you were not today's lucky winner, bear in mind that you can always get our help through GoToMeeting, doing whatever it is that you would like to do, and Gary Carnegie will schedule a time for you to take advantage of this. I think the deal here is that it needs to be used within a month within the calendar month after the one that we do our
correct. So
event.
The end of December.
Right. Okay. So just a minute or two left. Do we have any questions on what we've covered?
Nope. Just thank yous from Gary.
Oh, okay. Really, no questions and all that technical stuff. Great. All right. Well, thank you all very much for staying with us, and our pleasure bringing this information to you. We'll see you again in December. Hopefully not too late in the month so that you don't have to take off time from your Christmas vacation to watch the MasterMine webinar. And we'll be happy to hear from you also if you would like one-on-one support. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.